Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Ah. Mic is already on. This is a sign for me that I have to start talking. So, welcome everybody to the second day of the Bauma Forum. You can nicely see here the program, and today I can welcome you for the second day, which is the way to autonomous machines. And I think if you walk here through the Lab Zero, you see a lot of ideas, inspiration for the way to autonomous machines. So it's a very important topic. And I think today we will hear some more input about, first of all, why somebody is going the autonomous way, and and maybe some ideas about what is actually on the way, what will be in the nearer future available. So I think this day will give us a nice overview for our journey to autonomous machines. And basically, if you see the agenda, you will see that everything will end up in the way to zero emissions. And I think this is really something where the autonomous machines are a part of our journey to zero emission in construction, in cement production, or wherever we need the reduction of the emissions. Today, I'm really glad that we are starting with a keynote. The keynote will be presented by Holcim, and I'm coming from the cement industry, and basically I've done a lot of projects together with Holcim. And for me, Holcim was always the company who were very innovative, very attracted to new ideas, to try new ideas, which is in a very conservative industry quite difficult. So therefore, I'm really glad that I have Fabio and Plamen here from Holcim. They are taking care for the decarbonization of the quarries in the Holderbank cement plants. And I think there we will see really what is already possible, and why a company like Holcim is globally thinking in this direction. So, Fabio, as a head of the Quarry Decarbonization, can I ask you to join the stage and give your presentation? Plamen, please. And so enjoy the first keynote.
Good. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to see everyone here again. It's been a while, and it's good to be in an important big event like this in person again. So my name is Fabio. I'm the head of Quarry Decarbonization at Holcim for the Holcim Group, and I'm joined here also by Plamen Velev. He's a leading expert on automation and electrification of quarries. So over the next 20-30 minutes, I'm going to take you through more or less the outline of why we are going autonomous and electrifying our fleets in the quarries. And it really starts with the Holcim Manifesto. So we are building progress for people and the planet, becoming a global leader in innovative and sustainable building solutions. Now, I'm going to take you through a little bit Holcim's vision and what Holcim is doing, and then how it all ties to automation and why we're doing it. So climate action is really at the core of Holcim's strategy to become a net zero company. So this is all about becoming a net zero company, the company of the future. So with today's growing population and a rising urbanization, the construction sector is essential to building a net zero future. And when I say essential, reading between the lines, it's one of the big contributors to CO2 emissions and climate change in the world. So, you know, at Holcim, we're at the forefront of, as a company, we are responsible but we also have a huge opportunity to actually make a difference and to be at the forefront of decarbonizing the building material industry. So taking a rigorous science-based approach on this journey, we partnered with SBTi to launch our industry's first 1.5 degrees aligned framework, and we've already submitted our 2030 net zero targets. So the vision, it covers all the sectors of a building's life. So going from right at the start, which is the production of building materials. So Holcim wants to operate green operations, green plants, green sites. We're basically going green on mobility. We're formulating different products, all the way to using next generation technologies, carbon capture usage and utilization, and storage, of course. The second one that you see up there, it's building better with less. So this is about decarbonizing the construction industry itself. So as an example, we want to build better with less through low carbon materials. And this also includes, for example, systems like 3D printing that can reduce material usage by up to 50%. And then the third one, it's about making a building more sustainable, so in its actual use. And the last one, of course, is about the construction, circular construction. And this means building new from old. It can be things from using construction demolition waste in the production of cement and concrete, and aggregates, of course, recycling, all the way to upcycling plastics into roofing systems. So in the actual operations itself, we're transforming our cement operations. So cement is the biggest contributor among Holcim's construction materials. It's by far the biggest contributor in CO2 emissions, and therefore we want to drive performance, carbon neutrality, and circularity to meet the future customers' needs, not today's. So through end-to-end digital and equipment technologies, we will reach new levels of performance excellence, which means driving efficiency from things like automation to artificial intelligence. And we will pioneer innovations that drive circularity and carbon neutrality across the whole value chain. So now I'm going to go more specific each time. So that's the group's vision, and this will help understand a little bit the why. But the Plants of Tomorrow program in Holcim cement plants, this is the largest rollout of Industry 4.0 in the building solution industry. So what we're doing is going all the way from the quarry to the lorry. So you can see all the different areas in the cement production process that are going to be decarbonized through by looking at different technologies, solutions. And so far, we've deployed more than 1,000 pioneering innovations across from automation to artificial intelligence in all over 184 sites. And what this is doing is helping us to achieve better performance, carbon neutrality, and circularity. And quarries, they're an integral part of this Plants of Tomorrow program and vision. So now we go into the quarry vision. So Holcim is committed to operating net zero quarries. So our technology roadmap is data-led and future-focused. So we're ramping up cutting-edge Industry 4.0 technologies that deliver optimized performance, increase circularity, and equip us with everything that we need to reach net zero. And these kind of solutions, so really broad, so we include robotics and automation, we have machine learning and AI, We have predictive process maintenance and quality algorithms. We have sensors and connectivity that we look at, system integration and high-level control, digital twins, which is extremely important in anything to do with automation and electrification. And then, of course, electrification of our quarries and generating green power, because that's another thing that quarry land rehabilitation, there is a unique opportunity to use that to generate also green power. So a little bit on where are we starting from? So where are we coming from? So a typical cement plant in a typical cement quarry in Holcim produces around 1 million tons of limestone per year with a hauling distance of 1 to 1.5 kilometers. While a cement plant operates 24/7, normally our quarries are operating within restricted windows of time, and this can be based on operating only one shift per day, only on daylight hours, only on weekdays. And the reason for this is typically that we have either external restrictions or we're trying to optimize people and the number of shifts in order to minimize the running costs. So, or maximize productivity. And this was something that can also be further affected by downstream bottlenecks, because the quarry is the very first part of the cement production process. Any downstream bottlenecks, inefficiencies, and reliability issues then further reduce this window of operation for the quarry. So what does this mean? It means that our hauling fleets, crushers and transportation systems, they're typically designed for with a very large overcapacity to compensate for all these downstream potential losses and bottlenecks. Because in the end, the goal of the quarry is to supply, to absolutely ensure that the raw material is supplied so that we do not have to stop the cement plant from running because of a raw material shortage. So surety of supply is absolutely critical. And what does this mean in terms of our overall quarry design? So this has a very big impact on how a quarry is actually designed right from the start and how it's operated. So large and heavy trucks in order for the peak capacity demands that we have. It means very wide roads. It means very large turning circles and areas where we can corner. It means big benches, big drills, big dozers, big graders, big water trucks, and essentially everything around it that is required to operate what is essentially a very large quarry for a small production volume. So loading equipment size, it's based on the truck height and filling that truck with the optimum number of buckets, rather than the actual capacity of the loading equipment and what is required in the quarry in terms of the volume. So what we end up with is loading equipment that is oversized, has a larger fuel consumption, and actually operates with an idle or non-productive time of up to 50% in a lot of places. So rehandling material or waiting for the next truck. And all of this is highly inefficient when it comes to the actual fuel that we consume and the CO2 emissions per ton that we produce or that we need. Also, these places, many quarries, they're not attractive workplaces. They're often remote and isolated. It is becoming harder and harder to attract and retain good operators. Overall, these quarries have a very large footprint. So they are big, they're ugly, considered, for people that don't love quarries like me. They're noisy, they're dusty, they generate high CO2, and in many places, this is putting, in many countries, in many places, this is putting our operating license at very serious risk. So we have a serious problem that we will not be able to operate beyond 10 years, perhaps, or beyond 5 years. We've already seen examples around the world where quarries are not being extended in terms of their operating licenses, are not being extended because communities and towns and people around in not only in the surrounding towns, but general perception is that people don't want us to run these quarries anymore. So now to talk a little bit of future. The net zero quarry of the future will likely be operating a fully electrified fleet with high levels of automation and data connectivity. Now, a lot of suppliers and a lot of people actually ask us, why are we going there? Why are we going to autonomous fleets when you're only running 3 or 4 trucks in a quarry for a 1 million-ton operation? You don't have the volumes, you don't really have that many equipment, you're not running with that many people. Why are we even bothering going autonomous? And we have, of course, the classic reasons, which is for going autonomous and digital, which is first and foremost, it's taking people away from harm's way. So taking them out of the high-risk environment. That's always the number one reason. There can be financial benefits from operating with less people, particularly in highly developed countries where it's also been difficult to hire people. And it allows us to centralize mission control. So what this means is that it's possible to run several sites from a single location in a room that can be located strategically for example, closer to an urban center, or it means basically having upskilled and engaged personnel that work in a much more attractive environment. But one of the big reasons that is often overlooked, and that's the one I want to cover a little bit today in more detail, is that by leaving behind some of these classic constraints that I talked about before in the way that we design and operate a quarry, such as shift work, FTEs, vehicle numbers, if we leave all these parameters behind, restrictions, what we can actually do is we can take a step back and be more innovative in how we plan and operate the quarry of the future. So really outside of the box. So on the road to net zero, autonomous vehicles, they allow us to design quarries based on maximizing efficiency and reducing the footprint, rather than some constraints on optimization of FTEs and working hours and productivity. It allows us to, one massive example is operating smaller vehicles. Now, some of the benefits of operating smaller vehicles and not having the restraint of then basically tripling or quadrupling your people, it's that they are easier and more efficient to electrify smaller vehicles. Because the lower vehicle weight to payload ratio, it allows you to use smaller and lighter batteries, which then doesn't weigh your equipment down very, very significantly. It allows you to redesign the way that a dumper truck would look like, and it has a much more efficient power to work conversion as well. So another advantage is that they can save money by reducing costs, and also maintenance is not only cheaper but also easier. The skill required to change a tire to change a normal tire versus changing a 2-meter radius diameter tire is very different, and the equipment required, the number of parts on a small electric vehicle is almost non-existent compared to numbers that we're used to. Less noise and dust, drastic reductions in CO2 emissions. It also allows us to operate with much narrower roads, and saving significantly on development costs and route maintenance costs, as well as allowing us to actually plan the routes differently. When you have much narrower and smaller roads, small turning circles, it allows you to plan the routes more efficiently, and it also provides process planning and scheduling in a quarry. It makes that easier. It gives tighter material control and a much more continuous crusher throughput. And if you think about this, using small vehicles in a quarry when you have quality constraint and you're trying to mix different materials is almost like bucket blending, which normally would be a very expensive practice to use a wheel loader specifically to bucket blend, but not if you're using small autonomous vehicles. You can dose and portion materials in exactly the way that you want, and in the ratios and the order and the sequence that you want, because it's autonomous, and so the programming can deal with that. So all in all, it leads to a reduced environmental footprint. And not to forget, of course, also the point that loading equipment can also be optimized to a size that is actually matches the quarry throughput. By having smaller vehicles, you can use a loader type that might actually match what we are producing, which is only 1 million tons. It's not 20 or 30 on average. So my message today, and what I really want to emphasize, is that automation, it really deconstrains the route to net zero. And therefore it makes the business case more attractive. And that is very important, because deconstraining and taking away a lot of the issues, making the business case more attractive, means that we can move faster and we can move today. So all these factors are the reasons why we are first movers when it comes to quarry automation technology. And you can see that, for example, in the image of the pilot that we're running in one of our Swiss quarries in Switzerland with the autonomous trucks. So now a little bit on the way to the future. So how do we get there? So automating quarries is definitely not a simple feat. Quarries are comparatively small. They're highly diverse. They require certain levels of agility, and they can be in a lot of different places. We have more than 600 quarries in Holcim, compared to only decarbonizing maybe 5 or 10 big, massive mines. We have to look at 600 or so quarries in the group. So it's a very complex feat, and this needs to be reflected in the solutions that we adopt. So they cannot be overly complex, and they need to be infrastructure light, because the volumes and the size of our operations. So moving forward, what we require is we really require collaboration and open innovation with suppliers, with universities, with startups, and it also requires partnerships with telecommunication providers, power supply and distribution companies, system integration providers, and experts, homologation and permitting entities, and that's a very important, and that's also very important, and many other parties. And this takes a lot of energy and a lot of time, because you got to remember always that these kind of projects, it's probably a first for everybody involved. So there is no existing framework, there is no existing rule of thumb on what should the telecommunication system look like, what is in terms of permitting and homologation. No operation is operating yet with these, so this is a first for everybody that's working on this. So it's very complicated, and today the number of autonomous and net zero providers, solution providers that are targeting the quarry industry specifically is quite limited, and we're looking to work with our existing suppliers, but also with new ones, with startups, with universities, and we want to co-develop new concepts and technologies, but also adapt those from other industries that are already being applied, and see if we can apply those and integrate those into the way that we operate our quarries. So we want to be first movers, which means we designate the required resources, and we're working with our quarries in order to test, modify, and pilot and deploy technologies before they are actually rolled out on the market commercially. So we help co-develop these technologies. That's what we really want to do. And this is why we've come to the bauma Forum this year, and why we're participating in this forum here. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with all of you today. We want to provide a call to action to suppliers and academia so that we can all move forward together on the road to net zero. And that's everything from my side. I think we can go on to the panel discussion now, but I'll let Stefan. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Fabio, for this insight. And I think here, bauma is exactly the place to find all these networks, to find all the people who are willing to create these ideas this way, to get finally to the end of your way, to the fully automated quarry. Here we have universities, we have startups, we have a lot of suppliers.